Maddie. Um, I've been using, can you go to the next slide?
Yeah.
I've been using Smart Music for 13 years now, and I've kind of tweaked it along the way of how I use the application, but it has radically changed how I teach band. And I want to share with you some of the ideas I have about how to implement MakeMusic Cloud into your classroom. So I direct band with my wife, and at our school, at our middle school, we have 324 students this year enrolled in band. We've had as many as like 300, almost 50. So we're almost back to the pre-COVID numbers. Maddie, you can go to the next tab. So I wanted to begin by telling you a little background story. I had the student many years ago, before I used MakeMusic Cloud or Smart Music, that we started in summer band, and summer band is a 2-week session. And I could tell he was a good player, and he was paying attention and was very attentive. But at the end of the 2 weeks, he came up to me and he said, "Mr. Finn, I finished my first lesson book. Now what do I do?" And I'm thinking, yeah, right, you finished your first lesson book. Because he wasn't showing any signs during the lessons that I was teaching that he was going ahead in the lesson book. Now, he did have 2 older brothers that were in my band before, which they were great students too. But this student in particular is just amazing. And I'm like, well, how did you finish the lesson book? Well, I had him play the first couple of pages and he nailed it. So then I flipped ahead to the middle of the book and he nailed that exercise. I flipped to the back of the book, the hardest exercise. He nails it after 2 weeks. And I said, "JP, how did you do this?" And he said to me something really profound. He said, "Mr. Finn, if you read the book, it tells you what to do." And I was like, whoa, okay, this kid's smart. And so I started using Smart Music, and back then Smart Music, now MakeMusic Cloud. And it really is a learning partner for the students in the classroom. I really never thought of it as just an assessment tool or a way to assess students or just for home practice. I was incorporated in the classroom itself. And I wanted to create, what I saw was happening is I wanted to create a classroom of independent learners so that they were using this application so well that they were learning on their own. And I did it. And I want to share with you how this happens. Next slide, please. Okay, so this really is all under the category of student-centered learning. Jean Piaget, if you remember back to your education classes, right? He was really the guy that coined this term, student-centered learning. And in student-centered learning, it's a shift of how you teach. You know, we are band directors. We direct the band. We teach the students everything from how to finger the notes, how to make the embouchure, how to produce the tones, how to clap and count the rhythms. We teach everything. All the information comes from us and goes out to the orchestra. Well, you can switch it around, right? And here's how you do it. So in student-centered learning, you want to create an environment where student learning is on their own. So they're learning through guided instruction. Students share and they lead in the decision making. So for example, what part of the material are we going to practice next? All right, so they get to make some decision making. You're not always telling them what to do. Students self-assess their learning and their progress. They self-assess their learning through maybe turning on the microphone, but just comparing how they're playing to the my part on the recording of the accompaniments. Teachers are less directive and you are more consultative in there. And that's a big change that I had to go through when I started doing this, but it was an easy shift. And then guided questioning from the teachers. There's less telling the students what to do. You just ask them the questions and kind of steer them in the direction that you want to go. Next slide. So you ask more like the what, the why, and the how questions. What are we going to practice today? What do you guys want to work on today? Why are you working on it? And then how are we going to get to the next level? And so once you start asking these questions, you get the students that think more in your classroom rather than just react to what you're telling them to do. And this is a great thing. A lot of educators are probably familiar with John Hattie's book, Visual Learning. This is visual learning, where you can actually see the students collaborate together to problem solve. This is what administrators love. And I'm telling you, when they walked in my classroom, they were blown away with what was going on, because the students were actually guiding themselves through the learning process. Students are more reflective on their learning because they are taking more ownership of their learning. And you'll see, right now I'm just talking and you're probably like, what's the process? Once you see how I teach the kids, I'm going to show you videos, you'll see exactly what's happening. So students control their own learning pace. If they decide that they're really struggling, they can slow it down more as a group, as a collaborative group. The students are leading the groups, they're leading the classroom. Student learning becomes more personalized because they're making the decisions, and they like this method a lot better. It inspires more self-directed learning and curiosity and creativity and collaboration in the classroom. All stuff administrators love to see in the classroom too. Next slide. All right, so how do I set up my classrooms? I set up 2 folders for every class. I set up one folder as the practice classroom. And this one, the students never submit assessments in it. They only submit assessments in the test folder. And we'll talk about assessments later. But the practice classroom is where they find all the assignments that I'm going to assign them for that particular day or that unit. And then I select specific material for the students to learn each day. And I create a separate folder for each exercise. And I'll talk about that and show you that later. I pick a student to be the DJ in the classroom, meaning they're running the smart music application. So in my classroom, you'll see in the video, I have a big screen. I have a projector projecting the video onto the screen. And then I have the computer hooked up to an audio system, right? A stereo with speakers. And I have a student sit there, and I suggest when you set up your classroom that the student can actually see your screen. And I'll talk about that in a second too. But so the student can see your screen, they can see the computer screen, and they're running the computer. Why am I doing this rather than having me run the computer? Because I want the students to learn how to run the application. I want them to be so fluent at running the application, they can do it on their own. All right. And then I call this person the DJ. Why do they call it the DJ? Because kids want to be the DJ, right? And so when I first introduced smart music in the classroom, I'm like, who wants to be the DJ today? They're like, the DJ, what? I go, you're going to run the music. And I'm like, oh yeah, I want to do that. And then the DJ gives the verbal cues, finger and listen. And I have a system which I'm going to share with you. So the students, the first time they hear an exercise, they're fingering and listening, right? And then the second time they'll play, all right? The DJ asks if any students have any questions before he plays the exercise, all right? And then he'll give a cue. What I say is horns up, and then the students bring their instruments up, and then they're ready to play with the count off. All right, next. I teach my students, I think this is really important, teach them how to chunk the material and how to set loops, because this is the method we use to practice it. Because a lot of students want to practice from measure 1 all the way to the end of the song. So you have to teach them the benefits of chunking the material. For me, on middle school, I say our default tempo for starting everything is 60 beats per minute. And then I gradually increase by 10 beats per minute until they have mastered that material. All right. And then when I say master the material, I'm looking for about 80% mastery, not 100%. Students, you know this if you've been using smart music, students will freak out if they don't get 100% if they're actually assessing through the microphone. Tell them not to worry about it. You don't have to get 100%, and we'll visit this a little bit later too. I lower the accompaniment volume when I'm using smart music in the classroom, and actually when I tell the students to practice at home. Lower the accompaniment volume to 20% of its total volume. And then you want to increase my part in the metronome to 100%. So they hear a very clear metronome click, and then they hear my part for the modeling example, very loud, right? So nice and firm. And then the accompaniment is just there a little bit. Now, once they've mastered their material, then I say, go ahead and bring up the accompaniment up to 100%. But we're just talking about the initial stages of practicing for now. Next. All right, preset all your tabs for the classroom. So for that day. So I have in my classroom, the way it's set up, the way they schedule it, I have 6th grade band, I have 7th grade band, and 8th grade band. And 6th grade band is the beginning band. So if for some reason we start 6th grade in our district, but if some 8th grader wanted to join band, they would be in the 6th grade band, the beginning band. And so what I do every day is I'll set up all the examples of rhythms and lesson book and literature in one tab for 6th grade. And I set that up at the top. Maddie, can you allow me to share my screen so I can show them? Thank you. Share my screen. I think it's this one. Yes, it is. Perfect. Okay. Let me, unable to load. Something went wrong. Okay. So here, if you look at the top of my screen, you can see I have a 6th grade tab. And then what I do is, here's all the songs. So the student would go to the first tab and get rid of it. I have to reload it. So this is our warm-ups. And with the warm-ups, I write my own warm-ups just because I know my students, I know what they're capable of. And I write my warm-ups so that I have a student leader. This goes back to that student-centered learning. So the student actually steps up on the podium and plays the first pitch, and then the other students match that pitch. And I'll show you a video of that in just a minute. All right, so then after they finish their warm-ups, and I'm a big advocate of consistent warm-ups every day, and do a consistent routine in your classroom every day, so the students know what the routine is. They can predict what's coming. Then I'm a big advocate of doing rhythms, clapping and counting every day with every ensemble. It doesn't take that long. You can get through your rhythms in 5 minutes at most, maybe even less. So then we visit the next rhythm, and then the next rhythm. With rhythms, I'm a big advocate of making sure the students tap their feet so they can internalize the pulse, right? This really helps with the 8 notes later on, feeling that downbeats and the upbeats. And then we clap and count the rhythms. I use the system where it's 1, 2, 3, and 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. The system we use too when we do rhythms is when you hold notes, you hold your hands together. When you rest, you pull your hands apart and you're counting the rests, so that the students are occupied during the resting, so that they're not resting their minds, they're actually counting during rests. And then what I do is after we do rhythms, we jump right into the lesson book, and we'll do a page, try to do almost a page a day. And you can crank through these pretty quickly. The students hear the exercise first. Boy, this is taking a long time to load up. So I would set my accompaniment to 20%, my part all the way up, metronome all the way up, and then I'd have the students listen and finger the first time. This is really important. Having students listen and finger the first time, because now they have a clear model of what they're trying to play. Also, if they're doing the fingering, or for percussion, I say airplay. If they're doing the fingering, the first time they actually play it, which is the second time they're performing it, they're more likely to play it more accurately. So, and then they're going to enjoy playing that much more, right? Because you want them to play as accurately, as easily as possible. So I go through our lesson book, then I jump right into songs, the literature. And then I'll tell my students, if it's a new song that they're introducing, I'll have a group break up into a practice room, and then we'll have a student pick to be the DJ in the practice room, right? And they'll run the session. And I want different students every day to run the sessions, to run the sectional. And this is something that's so great having MakeMusic Cloud, because this is guided learning. And this is what enables the students to go into a practice room and be productive. You know, I know that many of you, if you just sent them in a practice room with just a lesson book, it probably wouldn't be that productive. But because they have this MakeMusic Cloud, and because I show them how to use the application really effectively, they run the sectionals really well. And my students can fly through the literature. So much so, it blew me away that once I started using the system, Maddie, we can go back and I'll stop sharing. Let's go to the next slide. All right, so this is how I set up my computer. So I have a dedicated computer. I don't use my school laptop. I have a dedicated computer for MakeMusic Cloud, and I just leave it plugged in all the time. And then I have the audio hooked up to an amplifier. I have room speakers. I have a projector. And then all the practice rooms have portable speakers in them that I purchased through the Band Booster money. And then the students plug into that, because what I found is the Chromebooks are not loud enough. The speakers are not loud enough for the instruments, because it's not really designed to be played with a bunch of instruments. So you need some external speakers to plug into for the audio. All right, next. So let's take a look, rather than listen to me talk, about what this process is. And I think you're going to get a clearer picture of what's going on. So this is a 7th grade flute sectional. And by the way, I did not tell the students to do anything special. When I found out I was doing the seminar, it was kind of towards the end of the year. And I thought, boy, I better get some video of what's going on. So I got video and I asked permission from the students and the administration, and they're okay with watching this because they said, share the love. Anyway, so you'll see the students fingering and practicing. You're going to see them collaborating with each other to learn. I'm not talking. This is what they're used to doing. You'll see them starting at the tempo metronome marking of 60 beats per minute. This laptop, you can't see, it's kind of hidden behind the uniforms. The students are practicing in the uniform room. How fun is that? But you got to use every room available. You just watch the girls and then we'll talk about it. So go ahead, Maddie, and play along.
Wait.
So Maddie, can you pause for a second?
These ones? Yes.
All right. So what you're seeing here is the students collaborating, showing each other. I think in this particular circumstance, the student on the right in the brown hoodie is asking the other student some questions about maybe fingering, or doesn't understand a symbol or something like that. But they're actually teaching each other. And this is what I love about this process, because the students are learning on their own. I mean, once you start doing this process, you'll be amazed at how much time it frees up with you. And then what do you do with that time? This allows me to walk around to different practice rooms and help the students that really need the help. You know, before, when I was teaching every note, every rhythm, I didn't have enough time in the day. Now I have much more time to kind of go around and help the students that are struggling. And you'll see your band program just gets better and better all the time, especially once they get used to this routine of learning this way. All right, maybe we can keep playing.
I think, yeah, these ones are just, no, I'm asking, did the flat. And the ones at the D8. Wait. The repeat, the ones that repeat.
So it's like somebody's writing in a fingering there.
What is it? First one.
The first two are C flat.
The first two are C. Your flute. How are those? Because they keep going good as it goes up. C, and then that's C, B flat, C, C. Okay. But speed it up.
Wait, yeah. Where'd you? Oh, that's B flat.
So we're gonna finger
Wait,
again, but
yeah.
speed it up. What do you want that? 75. Maybe, yeah. Where are we starting?
I
It's
think
54
54
to
to
the
the
end.
end.
Like we've been doing this whole time.
But fast.
Excuse me. We're fingering.
Yeah, so this is where some confusion comes in. I tell the student that is running the computer, the DJ, to always announce whether you're fingering or playing along. And this particular student, she forgot to tell them that they're fingering along. I don't think they really discussed it as a group, but usually they will. The person who's the DJ, I instruct the students to say, all right, so what do you want to do next? Do you want to finger along again, or do you want to play it? And then just get the group's opinion. But go ahead and keep playing. Well, I think we restarted. Maddie, can you go towards, yeah, speed it up. Yeah, about there. That's good.
Are we gonna play now?
You want to play? Who wants to play? You good, Leah? Who wants to play? Raise their hand. Okay, cool.
So I think the student said, who wants to play, raise your hand, and they're raising their hand.
Wait, what is the
That was actually
tempo?
terrible.
Or
No
the-
offense. 146. It keeps changing because of the.
You have to go.
All right, great. So what you're going to hear all these videos, this is new music the students received prior to the concert. I kind of tend to delay passing out the music a little bit longer than I used to, because I spend more time on rhythms and method books, so that my philosophy is not to teach music just through the literature, but to teach a lot of technique so that they just apply the technique to the literature and they can read through the literature pretty fast that way. Anyway, so let's go to the next group here. Let's go next slide. There we go. Okay, so this next one is going to be another DJ running a class. All the tabs are preset. So at the start of each day, I set up all the rhythms. I set up the warm-up, the rhythms, the lesson book, and the literature, if we're at the literature at that time. I preset it up first thing in the morning. Why? Because then the DJ just has to click the next tab and then literature's already pulled up. It just speeds up the pace. As you guys know as teachers, if you give them any dead downtime, that's when the trouble starts. So I just try to keep the flow moving pretty quickly. So you're going to see a 6th grade class with the leader on the podium, and you'll hear the trumpet player. And another thing I want to discuss with MakeMusic Cloud is that, believe it or not, it was amazing to me, our intonation improved greatly because they're matching a pure true pitch. And so prior to using MakeMusic Cloud, who in the clarinet section are they listening to? They're listening to the first chair clarinet player, right? But if they're playing in the upper register, they may be playing flat, especially in middle school. And so they think that's the pitch. And to get them to rise to where the true pitch is, it takes them longer. But I found that the students, I mean, they're hearing this correct true pitch all the time, and they're able to lock into it much better. All right, so let's go ahead and play. This is an example of student. There's the DJ. Tells them horns up. Here's our daily warm-up. On this particular warm-up, the students are buzzing on their mouthpieces first. All right. So in that, I think you're going to get a better picture of how I would run a classroom with the DJ, where the computer is placed, where I have the screen. If anybody doesn't have it set up, you get the screen set up and everything. My advice is talk to your administration. Trying to project in a larger band setting like we have here, like, so for example, our beginning band is about 130 kids. So they're larger classes. You pretty much have to have a pretty large screen to project the music on, and like a smart board would be too small. So you definitely want to get a large board. And then you know, convincing your administration to get MakeMusic Cloud for all your students is a process that I would be happy to, if anybody's struggling, to show you how I got it. I can tell you this: once I started using this application in my classroom and administration saw what we were doing, they were blown away. Like many years ago, there was a big push in our district to do that, you know, to use visual learning and to teach kids like what's the next step, so that students are kind of really thinking like the teacher, and they know how to learn on their own. And this is before I had MakeMusic Cloud, and I thought, well, that can't work in band because they don't know anything about music. How's a student going to get up on the conductor's podium and conduct? It's not going to happen. Well, once I got, and I saw, that's actually after that I saw, then it was called Smart Music. I thought, aha, I know I'm going to do this. I know exactly what I'm going to do. And at first the district fought me on it, and they weren't interested in me going rogue. Like, why do you want this? And I said, you got to trust me. This is going to be great. And when they later on saw what I was doing, they were blown away. And they were so blown away that they bought MakeMusic Cloud for every band in our district, the 5 middle schools and the 2 high schools. And they said, Brian, would you teach them, you know, teach the other directors how to use this application? This is unbelievable. And so, I mean, that's testimony to what's going on. And here's also the other thing too, is that once I started teaching this way, the students weren't going slower. They were learning faster. It was this wave of knowledge that spread out with the students, because they could now practice on their own. They knew how to use the application really well because we're doing it every day in class. They knew the practice method of slowing it down, chunking the material, and then working from there. What used to take me 3 months for the kids to learn their literature, they're learning in 3 weeks. I mean, it's exponentially faster. It's unbelievable. I think, if you try this, you'll see, because the students love technology. They love to have that freedom to rehearse on their own. And what they're really doing is they're learning how to be better practicers with this application. And they're more likely to use MakeMusic at home, now, because they're really familiar with the application. Yeah, so students are learning how to practice. That's really what you're teaching them. They're learning how to practice independently. They're learning to be like that student I said at the beginning, JP Moraga, where they're learning on their own. And what that allows me to do is just like that video you saw where I'm walking around the classroom. That's what I do now. I walk around the classroom and I give guidance. I tell students, right, watch your hand position here. Horn up, please. Tap your foot. And I couldn't do all that stuff before. I'd be stuck on the podium. All right, so let's go to the next video. So here is the very first day the percussion section got this piece. This is 8th graders. And here's another student rehearsing them. You can see him on it's my file left over there on the computer. And you'll see them chunk the material. All right. And they're going slow. And some of your 8th graders are going to be like, no, I just want to start at, 120. Just tell them, no, we're going to master the material first. And my students will say, yeah, but I know it already. And I tell them, and I know this as a professional musician myself. One of the great things about, MakeMusic Cloud is that, I'll take stuff like a really fast big band tempo tune and I'll play through it. And I think, yeah, I did pretty well. But no, if you go back and listen to it, slow it down, you made a lot of mistakes. So the best way to really master the material is to slow it down so that it's easy. And that's good. It's good that it's easy. And I tell it to my students, it should be easy. It should be easy and it should be fun. It's no fun if you're making mistakes all the time. So slow it down and just keep ingraining that in them. And then eventually they'll just believe you. All right, let's go ahead and play.
Okay, Ben, so this is a brand new piece that you're rehearsing and you're teaching the percussion section how to play this all on your own independently. So what's the process? What are you going to do?
So first I'm gonna turn the tempo down to 60 because it's much easier to learn harder pieces at a slower tempo than at 160. And then I'm going to take small chunks and play.
So he's talking about slowing it down
slow tempo
and picking small chunks.
And as we get good at each chunk, we're going to speed it up by 10 beats per minute.
Now he's talking about slowing it down 60 and then increasing by 10 each time.
The original 160.
Why 10 beats per minute?
Very good. Let's
I found that
see
works
what you're
best.
doing. Ready, percussion? So what's the next step?
So next we're going to speed it up by 10 and then play it again.
Okay.
All right, man, I think we're gonna stop. So it's we can go to the next slide. I think they understand. So it's important that the students know what the process is, right? They need to know what the next step is. You can't just send them in a practice room and say, practice with MakeMusic Cloud and expect good results. You have to have a system that you taught them. And I teach them this in the classroom. Slow it down to 60, right? Lower the accompaniment down to 20%. Metronome and my part is full speed. Finger through the first time. That's one thing Ben didn't have them do. Maybe when I was shooting the video, I skipped that part, but they should have airplayed first. I say airplay for percussion. And then next time play it. And that's really important, like I said, to airplay first or finger long first, then play it second time. So the benefits of student-centered approach, and I call it student-centered because that's probably in theory the closest of what this approach is. It gives the students a chance to express their ideas in the classroom, because I ask questions. How did that sound to you? What went wrong? We didn't play any dynamics. Correct. Let's add dynamics this time. Helps the students develop their leadership skills and collaboration skills. Teaches students how to learn and how to practice. It creates an environment where learning is overt, meaning you can see the learning taking place. This goes back to John Hattie, right? You want to see the students collaborating, discussing. Students are discussing what they're learning and their strategies are, and they're learning and independent practicing solutions to the problems. So they're discussing the solutions to the problems. I'm not telling them what to do. Students are accountable for their own learning. As you can see there, they're making decisions about how to practice. I tell them what to practice, but as far as how to practice it, they get to make that decision. And then each day is a new student leader, so that each student gets a chance to run the computer and be a DJ. Don't just let one student do it all the time, because he's going to be the one that's really proficient using it, and then the other students aren't. And then next slide. Benefits. The students will learn faster. All right, and I talked about that before. Students can learn more material because the students are learning faster. They can learn more material. They can learn more advanced material. All right, intonation improved, as I mentioned before, and that was just kind of a side thing. With intonation, what I like to do with the students is I will pull up the app they have in MakeMusic Cloud and let them see and discuss, what flat sharp sounds like, and then we actually assign words to it. Like, for example, what does sharp sound like? And I'll demonstrate playing sharp, and then some students say, sounds like a flying saucer, or it sounds agitated, or it sounds high, right? It sounds like cringy, right? And then we discuss what does flat sound like. Let's assign some adjectives to that. It sounds sad, depressed. It's important that you assign these words so students know how to associate in their mind with what flat sounds like, right? And then once I teach them that system, then with tuning, I'll just put the app up there, and then we'll tune, and I'll just tell them to adjust. And the kids get pretty good at adjusting. They get pretty good at hearing what's flat or sharp, but that's a whole nother lesson I could share some other day. Assign strong performers with weak performers to go into practice room. So now you have your best clarinet player. Now you can take, with this guided learning, MakeMusic Cloud, take that student and then with the weakest player and put them together and have the strongest player work with the weakest player with this guided learning. It's a great way to help improve those students that are struggling. And students are more responsive. All right. Let me see. Benefits to students are. Okay, go ahead. Next slide. Okay, one last thing. Something I found is that students are more responsive to my directing because I'm off the podium for the first couple of weeks. When I do step up the podium, that's the 80% rule. So go ahead to the next slide. All right, here's the thing. If you've been using MakeMusic Cloud for a while, students are afraid to submit assignments. Oh, thank you. Students are afraid to submit assignments because they want to get 100%. So from the very beginning, I tell my students, just shoot for 80. And I use this 80% in a lot of my classroom environment situations. So for example, if you've got an 80 on an assignment, submit it to me. I try not to use MakeMusic as just an assessment tool. About 80% of the time, I'm using it as a classroom tool, right? Honestly, only about 5 to 10% of the time am I using it as an assessment tool. So reassure the students they don't have to get 100%. All right, next. All right, so something I really encourage you to do is get familiar with Finale. I'm sure many of you are, and then write your own material. I'd be more than happy to share with you what my beginning band warmups, my concert band warmups. I tried to incorporate everything that they'd run across so that they got warmed up within a 4-minute warm-up. And I think it's really successful. So is that beginning band warm-up. So create your own music. Man, it's so powerful. And coupling MakeMusic Cloud with you as a writer, you know, you can write your own method book. It's amazing. Next. So compliments. You know, like I said, the district believes so much in what we were doing. They bought it for the whole school district. It was amazing. I told you about that Western Illinois professor that came over. And then, okay, one last thing is that next slide. Okay, so I want to tell you one story. So the students came in and they picked a song. They said, Mr. Finn, can we play this song? And I was like, yeah, great. But I wanted to see how far they could take this learning on their own with students that are learning. So I said, I will let you pick the piece, but you have to learn it on your own. And I'm not going to teach it to you until the week before the concert. And sure enough, they learned the piece. I stepped up to the podium and just made a few balance adjustments, and we played it, and the parents were amazed. And this is what the technology is all about.